Chapter 4 is all about assessing student learning outcomes. The learning outcomes for this video are to clarify the principles in assessing learning outcomes. Next, to explain the phases of outcomes assessment. Next, determine alignment of learning outcomes and assessment tasks. Outcome assessment is the process of gathering information on whether the instruction, services, and activities that the program provides are producing the desired student learning outcomes. The first topic of this chapter is all about the principles of good practice in assessing learning outcomes. Principle number 1. The assessment of student learning starts with the institution's vision, mission, and core values. There should be a clear statement on the kinds of learning that the institution values most for its students. We can see it through its vision, mission, and core values. Principle number 2. Assessment works best when the program has clear statement of objectives aligned with the institutional vision, mission, and core values. Such alignment ensures clear, shared, and implementable objectives. So everything we do in school should be aligned with our vision, mission, and core values. Third principle. Outcome-based assessment focuses on the student activities that will be relevant after formal schooling concludes. The approach is to design assessment activities which are observable and less abstract, such as to determine the student's ability to write a paragraph, which is more observable than to determine the student's verbal ability. Principle number 4. Assessment requires attention not only to outcomes, but also equally to activities and experiences to the attainment of learning outcomes. Therefore, your assessment is equivalent to the learning activities in level with the learning outcomes. Principle number 5. Assessment works best when it is continuous, ongoing, and not episodic. Therefore, assessment should be linked to the series of activities. It should be done in instructional cycle, and it should be cumulative. Principle number 6. Begin assessment by specifying clearly and exactly. So, assessment should be stated in learning outcomes and lesson objectives. Examples. Student will be able to apply fundamental principles of physics to real-world situations. Second example. Student will be able to critique primary source material from the 18th and 19th centuries. Those are very specific objectives. Principle number 7. The intended learning outcome, or ILO, or the lesson objectives, not content, is the basis of the assessment task. You use content in the development of the assessment tool and task, but it is the attainment of your learning outcome, not content, that you want to assess. This is the outcome-based teaching and learning. Principle number 8. Set your criterion of success or acceptable standard of success. It is against this established standard that you will interpret your assessment results. Example, is a score of 7 out of 10 the highest possible score, acceptable or considered success? So, you have to set your criterion of success or what is acceptable. Principle number 9. Make use of varied tools for assessment data gathering and multiple sources of assessment data. It is not pedagogically sound to rely on just one source of data gathered by only one assessment tool. Consider multiple intelligences and learning styles. Here, we have examples of assessment tools to use: grading rubrics and assignments, self-assessment, and peer assessment. You can use surveys and classroom polling. Principle number 10. Learners must be given feedback about their performance. Feedback must be specific. Example number 1, when you write "good work," that is not specific. When you say "keep it up," that is not specific. It can only inspire, but you cannot tell about mistakes and about what to correct. Example number 3, 3 of your commas were misplaced. So that is very specific. The next time, the student can improve it. The next one, you have not followed a motif. So, if ever that student created a portfolio, the next time he or she is going to make a portfolio, he will follow already a good motif. Principle 11. Assessment should be on a real-world application and not out of context drills. We have some examples of assessment. Example, look to the news activity. The first place that you can look is in the news. Second, maybe you can create a simulation of a real-life experience. Maybe in your mathematics, you can give students a real, tangible problem to solve. Those are examples on real-world application. Principle number 12. Emphasize on the assessment of higher-order thinking. We have here higher-order thinking questions. What can you infer? Or what can you point about? Blank, certain thing. Or what evidence in the text can you find that? What explanation do you have for blank? Okay? These are all higher order thinking questions. Principle number 13. Provide opportunities for self-assessment. We have here some examples of self-assessment tools. Example, rubrics, creating scripts, making journals, creating portfolios, or having exit cards. Okay, that ends our first topic of this chapter. Then we will go now to the next topic. The next topic will be samples of supporting student activities. Here, student learning outcomes must be supported by student activities. Your student learning outcome number 1 will be select and use appropriate technology to accomplish a given task. These are the supporting student activities. Solving problems through computing skills. Use online computer-based tutorials and trainings. Therefore, supporting student activities must always be aligned with the student learning outcomes. We have example student learning outcome number 2. Exercise sound reasoning and logic to analyze issues, make decisions, and overcome problems. This will be the supporting student activities, making reflections based on the conditions at hand, whether individually or collaboratively. Analyzing research information for more thorough understanding. So, this is very much aligned to the student learning outcome number 2. Example, student learning outcome number 3. Articulate thoughts and ideas clearly and effectively in written and oral forms. Supporting student activities. Effectively communicating verbally with others one-on-one, in groups, or in front of audiences. Second, demonstrating a clear organization of one's thoughts, using words that reflect one's intended meaning, and delivering the information in readable, clear, and concise manner in an essay. Our next topic will be all about outcomes assessment phase in the instructional cycle. This figure here presents the outcome assessment in the instructional cycle. It starts with institutional mission, followed by program goals, subject objectives, desired student learning outcomes, diagnostic assessment, deciding on lesson focus, supporting student activities, formative assessment outcomes, review and reteach, mastery learning, and summative assessment of outcomes. Each one of these will be explained on the next slide. Phase number 1 is all about institutional mission. These are the statements that provide various constituencies, like for example the students, faculty, legislators, and others, with the institution's educational goals and guidance concerning the achievement of these goals. Example, the Department of Education mission: to protect and promote the right of every Filipino to quality, equitable, culture-based, and complete basic education, where students learn in a child-friendly, gender-sensitive, safe, and motivating environment. Teachers facilitate learning and constantly nurture every learner. Administrators and staff, as stewards of the institution, ensure an enabling and supportive environment for effective learning to happen, where family, community, and other stakeholders are actively engaged and share responsibility for developing lifelong learners. Phase number 2, program goals. Program goals are broad statements of the kinds of learning we hope students will achieve. They describe learning outcomes and concepts in general terms. These are what you want students to learn. Example, clear communication, problem-solving skills, and others. Example, goal number 1, understand how to solve problems effectively and efficiently. The objectives is specific: obtain, interpret, and use knowledge and experience, facts, and data in the process of solving personal problems. Make decisions based on the conditions at hand, whether individually or collaboratively. Next, research and analyze information for more thorough understanding. So, specific objectives are based on the program goals. Phase number 3, subject objectives. These are brief statements that describe what students expected to learn by the end of school year, course, unit, lesson, project, or class period. Example, by the end of the course, the students will be able to understand physical fitness concepts and be able to make adaptations to meet the fitness needs of individuals with disabilities. Recognize and apply the developmental patterns and motor movements as they relate to the performance of the basic skills in physical education, recreation, music, and health. Appreciate the importance of a positive self-concept and emotional well-being related to the diversity of special populations. So, these are the examples of course outcomes for adapted physical education, recreation, music, and health. Phase number 4. Desired student learning outcomes. These are statements that describe significant and essential learning that learners have achieved and demonstrated at the end of a course or program. This will identify what the learners will know and be able to do by the end of a course or program. Example: demonstrate an ability to use appropriate assessment instruments to determine students' needs in the cognitive, psychomotor, and affective domains. Analyze current practices to determine trends in adopted assessments in compliance to a CHED standard. Third, identify disorders and use appropriate methods of instruction for those individuals with disabilities. Probably, these are examples for the subject: adapted physical education, recreation, health, and music. Phase number 5. Diagnostic assessment. This is a type of assessment which examines what a student knows and can do prior to a learning program being implemented. This is the assessment of students' skills and knowledge upon entry to the program, provides a baseline against which to assess progress. These are examples of diagnostic assessment: pre and post tests, journal, multiple choice or short answer, peer and self-evaluation, qualitative reading inventory, diagnostic reading assessment. Phase number 6. Deciding on lesson focus. It is the time when the teacher is demonstrating, modeling, and sharing his or her thinking with students. This will also engage students in the learning by building and or activating background knowledge, establish or revisit routines and expectations of the subject. Phase number 7. Supporting student activities. These are examples of supporting student activities. Students apply principles of logical thinking and persuasive argument in writing. Forming opinion about the topic. Researching and writing about a variety of perspectives. Adapting style to identified audience. Employing clear argument in writing. Phase number 8. Formative assessment outcomes. This will be a wide variety of methods that teachers use to conduct in-process evaluations of student comprehension, learning needs, and academic progress during a lesson, unit, or course. Examples: we have formative assessment examples: impromptu quizzes or anonymous voting, short comparative assessments to see how pupils are performing against their peers, 1-minute papers on a specific subject matter, lesson exit tickets to summarize what pupils have learned, another silent classroom pools. Phase number 9. Review or reteach. Here, the teacher is going to examine or assess something formally with the possibility or intention of instituting change if necessary. If the result of your lesson is good, then maybe you are going to make it better the next time. If it is not successful, then maybe there's something wrong with it, maybe in the objectives or in the activities. Therefore, everything should be aligned, the objectives and the activities. And we are going to consider also the learning styles of our student. Phase number 10. Mastery learning. It is a method of instruction where the focus is on the role of feedback in learning. It refers to a category of instructional methods which establishes a level of performance that all students must master before moving on to the next unit. Phase number 11, Summative Assessment of Outcomes. This is the assessment of participants where the focus is on the outcome of a program. This contrasts with formative assessment, which summarizes the participants' development at a particular time. Examples: summative assessment, end of term or midterm examinations, cumulative work over an extended period, such as a final project or creative portfolio, end of unit or chapter tests, or standardized tests. Our next topic is all about constructive alignment. Constructive alignment. It is an outcomes-based approach to teaching in which the learning outcomes that students are intended to achieve are defined before teaching takes place. Teaching and assessment methods are then designed to best achieve those outcomes and to assess the standard at which they have been achieved, according to Biggs in 2014. This is now the constructive alignment. It's composed of learning outcomes, learning and teaching activities, and assessment. This will be the constructive alignment for the intended learning outcomes, ILOs. Means that what should learners know or be able to do. Then we have teaching learning activities, TLAs. How will the learners learn? Then we have the assessment tasks. How will learning be measured? How to ensure constructive alignment? To ensure constructive alignment, follow the suggestions according to Lasrado and Cowell in 2020. Create learning outcomes that clearly inform students what they will be expected to know and be able to do. Design assessment tasks to enable students to demonstrate achievement of the learning outcomes. Design learning activities that are aligned with the assessment tasks and designed to support students to achieve the learning outcomes. We have here example of constructive alignment. It is composed of learning outcome, teaching learning activity, assessment task, or method. Example of learning outcome. By the end of the course, the students will be able to plant a tree. Here's teaching learning activity in line with the learning outcome. The students are going to watch a demonstration of a landscaper planting a tree. Students are going to visit a field with peers to practice planting a tree. Here's the assessment task or method in line with learning outcome and teaching learning activity. There should be a practical examination where students demonstrate that they can plant a tree. In the example, all three elements, the learning outcome, teaching learning activities, and assessment task or method, are directly aligned. So this will be the concrete example of constructive alignment. And that's all for today. Bye.